If you're buying a Sol-Ark product, it's very likely that somebody's gonna be installing it for you. But for those of you guys who are gonna DIY, or even if you're actually getting this thing installed for you, this is one of the most expensive options on the market. So the real question is it worth your hard-earned money? So welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. We have had our hands on different Sol-Ark products in the past, and despite their very high price tag, they do perform really well. And so when Sol-Ark's new limitless 18k 2P-LV inverter was released, we were pretty stoked to put it through all our testing here at the lab. As always, we will leave links to this inverter and any discount codes that we can get to save you guys some money in the description down below. But before we get into if this thing lived up to the hype and the price tag, we're gonna hit you guys with a super quick spec teardown in case you're not all that familiar with Sol-Ark's brand new 18K yet. First up, this thing barely passes the tiny baby lift test. He claims he can pick it up, but it's like the size of him, so it's an awkward battle. This unit has an 18 kilowatt inverter, and it's rated to surge up to 36 kilowatts, which is huge. It's got a 200 amp pass-through built directly into it, and you can parallel up to 12 of these guys for a system bigger than probably most people will ever need. In terms of charging power, this can actually charge batteries at a rate of 350 amps, which is huge. I think that's the biggest we've seen here at the lab. That means it could put almost 18 kilowatts of power directly into your batteries. This unit has a max solar input of 32 kilowatts with a usable of about 29. You can also put up to 28 kilowatts of generator input directly into this thing. If you take a look inside the actual inverter at the ports behind the little protective shield, you have your solar inputs, you have your battery connections, you have your grid and your load connections, as well as your generator ports. And the cool thing with this inverter is that the generator port is able to, with the dry connections, do the auto start-stop functionality of a generator, so it can turn it on and off based on settings that you decide. But you can also use that as a smart port. So you can pair it to a specific big load, like a car charger, an EV charger, and you can tell it to only function within certain parameters. So if the batteries are getting low or the inverter is getting to a really high output, turn off that port to make sure that you don't overload your system or kill your batteries, which is pretty cool. Most other inverters that we've seen with that, it's a dedicated smart inlet port. And in terms of the design of this inverter, it looks just like almost every Sol-Ark product ever. You have your screen right here on the front, hasn't really changed, typical Sol-Ark screen. On the side, you have your PV isolator, you have your on and off switch, as well as your port right here for this giant Wi-Fi dongle. There's nothing on the other side except for the door clamps, and it has an IP65 rating, which means it can be outside, can't get super wet, but it can be outside. This unit does connect to the app through the giant dongle, but we will get into that in a little bit. And right now, at the time of filming with our discount code, this inverter is $6,430, which is a very hefty price tag. The first thing that we really like with this is that when you're setting it up, you only need one tool to handle almost every single lug inside of here, except your battery terminals. Those have nuts on them. That's nice because a lot of inverters that we get here at the lab, it's different size like hex fittings on each lug, which is super annoying. It just means you have to have a ton of tools when you're installing this thing. It's nice. You only need this one. It's an 8 mil. You're good to go. We also really like that Sol-Ark has something called a knowledge hub. It's basically just a giant knowledge hub. It's one location where Sol-Ark puts all the documentation for all of their products, which is just nice because it makes it really easy to find when you're trying to set things up. A lot of other companies, you have to sift through different websites and try to figure out where different documents are because they're not all in one place. So it's just, we really like that when it comes to the install. It's just another thing that makes it really easy. There's clear instructions for how to make an account, set up your app, and do all that stuff, which is huge. Another thing we really like is that the generator port in here has actually got multiple functions. Most inverters, the generator in is just that. It just is an inlet port for power. If you want to get a smart load or something like that, you, with an EG4, for example, have to buy a grid boss. This has the ability to do two functions. Not only is it a generator inlet, but you can also use it as a smart port. Basically meaning that you can use it to take something like an EV charger that's like a really high load, and you can set it to turn on or off at different values, whether the inverter is at a really high output or your batteries are getting really low. It'll kill something that's not a priority, like a water heater or a car charger, and then it'll turn it back on whenever you tell the system that the parameters are. So whenever the batteries get charged up or whenever the inverter is at a little bit less of a load. And the nice thing is that if you're using this off grid, you can use the generator port as a smart load, and then you can also use the regular grid input as your generator input. so you don't lose the ability to put power into this thing, which is cool. If you're looking to do something similar with a brand like EG4, you have to buy two things instead of just getting one. You have to buy like the Flex Boss and the Grid Boss. It actually does work out to be a little bit of a cheaper price still, but depending on how much room you're working with or what your setup looks like, it might make more sense to just get something like this where it's all in one place. We also like that with a fully capable inverter like this, it has tons of operating modes. So you have grid cell where you can sell power back to the grid. You can set it to do peak shaving, and then you have obviously your off grid and your hybrid modes as well built into there. And we also think it's cool that there's 3 strands of MPPTs that go into this inverter. Typically you only see 2. So that has its benefits to, obviously this is a massive solar input, that's why there's so many, but it's nice if you have multiple strands of solar panels facing different directions in your yard to capture sun throughout the day, or different angles on your roof or whatever. You can put them all into different inputs to make sure that one set of panels not getting full sun doesn't affect your entire array. You can maximize the potential of each 3 different arrays that you have. We also really like that Sol-Ark has really good customer support. You guys know that's really important, especially when you're spending over $6,000 on one piece of equipment. In our experience, them not even knowing who we were at first, they're very determined to help. They have different tiers of support. So if you're having like a really technical based problem, they'll call you back from like a level 2 support. They seem pretty determined to help, and they were quite knowledgeable, which is really nice. It's something that's actually really hard to come by. And the last thing that we really like about this inverter was how it performed in our testing. The idle, just this inverter being on the wall, takes power from the batteries just to sit there. It takes about 108 watts every hour just doing that, which is kind of high, but if you actually look at the specs of this, how big the inverter is, how much solar it can put in, all that kind of stuff, it's not terrible. We've seen inverters that do a lot less, use the same or even a little bit more just idling, so it's not the end of the world. It did as advertised, and we got this thing to actually charge batteries at a rate of 18 kilowatts, which is crazy. And we also found that the inverter surges to that 36 kilowatt number that they advertise, which again is just a really impressive number. That means that there's really nothing you could throw at this, like even a 5-ton air conditioner. You could start that thing with this inverter, no problem. For example, even this thing running an 18 kilowatt load, which is its max output, it was still able to surge and start our compressor, which is a 10,000 watt surge. That's pretty impressive. And when it comes to the sound of this, it's actually one of the quietest inverters that we have ever worked with, which is nice. It means if you have it somewhere in a space that's kind of close to where you're gonna be living, you don't have to worry about hearing it all the time. It wasn't all perfect though, and the first thing that we didn't really like about this inverter was the app. They have an app that you can use, and that's great because that's more than a lot of other companies can say. But the experience just isn't very user-friendly. It feels a little dated. It feels like something where like the people who work there and have really good knowledge of their products and experience with the app and they use it all the time, to them it probably makes sense. But as someone new to a system, if you were to pull that app up and try to start navigating it, it's just a little clunky. It's a little confusing. And there's a lot of settings that you would want to access, like the settings menu of the inverter. And it's not just like a button that says settings, it's like hidden in 3 little dots that you can barely see. And there's just a couple things like that where it feels like the app could definitely use a revamp, especially to compete with some of the other companies that are selling products like this. The biggest buzzkill, like the biggest issue with the app, is that it only sends an update from the inverter to the app or the web-based version. So if you're on a computer or your phone, the inverter only sends information to that program every 5 minutes. So you can't like live track what your inverter is doing. It's just a random update every 5 minutes, and it doesn't push it to the app. So when you're on there, you have to wait 5 minutes and then manually refresh it to see what it's doing. In terms of monitoring your system, it's really only good to get like a rough idea of where your batteries are at or what your solar might look like in the middle of the day. It's not something where you can go on there and monitor your system. Sol-Ark says they have a new app coming out that's gonna be a lot better, but right now, if you spend your money on this tomorrow, that's what you're gonna get. Something else that we really didn't like and actually made us run into a couple issues was that this inverter has very limited battery capabilities. It only works with a couple select batteries. It works with brands like Briggs & Stratton, Discover, Pites, and Renon. Briggs & Stratton, we actually don't have much experience with, but all the other 3 we have had very bad experiences with their batteries. And that led to us having a tough time working with this inverter because no matter which one of those we picked, the experience was not that good. We even mentioned this to them on the phone, and they admitted that EG4 has one of the best quality and value batteries on the market right now, but they don't have any plans to make this compatible with EG4 because they're trying to do their own thing. Working together would be better than competing, in my opinion. The politics here is what's causing a problem. Sol-Ark is mad that EG4 started after them and is growing faster than they are, and then they're doing things like this, which makes it hard for them to grow. At the end of the day, we don't love any battery that this thing works with, and that, to us, is a really big problem. And the last thing that we really don't like, no matter what we did, we just couldn't justify the price of this in our own minds. There's just other options that, you know, maybe they're more compatible with more battery brands, or maybe they do the same thing for a little bit less money. It's just hard to justify the price of this. I would say if someone's gonna do the install for you and this is the product that they wanna recommend to you and you're okay with it, perfectly good product. But if you're strictly shopping for value or bang for your buck, there is better stuff out there. So at the end of the day, this inverter is expensive. Sol-Ark does have the one pro of having been around for a lot longer than a company like EG4, and there is the evidence that their hardware and all their stuff is really good and it does last a long time. If someone's offering this to you, like I said, an install, they're gonna put it in your home for you. It's a great product. I wouldn't refuse it at all. I think it works really, really well. If you're shopping around and you're just trying to get the best price, we'll leave links to some other stuff that we might recommend in the description down below. But at the end of the day, this inverter performs really well. They have really good support, which is very important. And once they update that app and make that monitoring just a little bit more monitoring, not just like checking in on how are you feeling, I think that there is a really good use case for this product. And maybe, yeah, Sol-Ark could, you know, make it work with some better batteries. Peace out and stay charged.